Welcome to today's Awesome Marriage Podcast. I'm so glad you are here. I hear so many parents so fearful about my kids going to be exposed to pornography. How do I protect them for this? If they've been exposed, what do I do? Well, today we have Kristen Jenson. She is the #1 best-selling author of Good Pictures. It's a series of read aloud books. She is the executive producer of the Brain Defense Digital Safety Curriculum. She is the CEO of Glen Cove Press and the founder of DefendYoungMinds.com. If you've been worried about what to do with your kids concerning pornography, this podcast is for you. And if you're a parent, a grandparent, or just a friend of someone, you will get so much out of this podcast. Let's go to the studio right now. Well, Kristen, welcome to the Awesome Marriage Podcast. So excited to have you. Thankful for you saying yes to this and looking forward to this interview very much.
Thank you, Dr. Kim. I'm very happy to be with you today.
I'm excited. So let's kind of just jump into this. Why did you even start writing books for young kids about pornography? It probably wasn't on when you graduated college. That probably wasn't what you thought you were going to do.
No, absolutely not. I met a woman. She had a large family, and she was trying to protect them from all of the bad influences out there. She was homeschooling even. They had internet. And she found out that her oldest son was sexually molesting his younger brothers and sisters. And pornography was definitely involved. And we know that pornography is fueling this huge rise in child-on-child harmful sexual behavior. So anyway, she told me about it, her situation, and, all the fallout. And we talked late into the night. And I woke up the next morning and I just had this compelling thought, how are we going to warn the young children against pornography? Because I could tell that they were being, he was 17 at the time, but I'd heard of stories of younger children. And this had been going on for a while. So how do you talk to kids about pornography in a way that doesn't scare them, doesn't scare the parent, is a way that's comfortable, that just explains, the harms of pornography, the science behind it? So I started out thinking, if I did it in a science-based way where I'm explaining how it can become an addiction in the brain and explaining, what it is and why it's harmful and what to do when they see it. So give them a definition, a warning, and a plan that children could have a real choice, right? So that's what I did. After, like I said, I just felt compelled. I went and looked for a resource, first of all. So I thought, for sure, it's out there already because this is a problem. It's been going on for a while. But then I couldn't find anything. And so I started doing some research and I just thought, well, I'll just write this book. And it kind of goes along with my personality. I will kind of jump in and then figure out how to swim. And so that's kind of what I did. And I had a lot of help along the way from very smart people. And so if I have any genius at all, it's really just in getting other people to help me to do this thing, right? So I have a wonderful team now that helps with Defend Young Minds and has helped. I've had many, many parents help me with both of these read aloud books. And so that's how I got started, with, a tragic situation in a family that was the impetus to do this good thing.
Yeah. It's so amazing how God just opens doors for us and just laid that on your heart. And I can't imagine, I've had parents that have gone through the same thing. They discover a older child has been molesting younger ones, and it's always, they've got knowledge above their age about things, and they're, and so it goes back to pornography, or they were abused. It's been my experience through it. And it's just, it just happened. So let's talk a little bit about the books, the basic message. Talk about both of them. And because I think this is parents always ask me, what's a tool? Well, you found there wasn't a tool. Now there is a tool because you've written them. But I think parents need something in their hands to start with. They're willing to, but
Right.
they don't know where to go, and they don't want to blow the conversation, And
Right.
so, talk a little bit about the books then.
Yeah. So, as I mentioned, parents need kind of like a script, right? We
Yeah.
all need scripts for certain situations. And for a lot of life situations, our parents kind of pass down scripts to us like, here's what you do in this situation, and here's what you do in that situation. But for many parents today, this is not the same problem that I faced, even raising my kids, or my mother faced.
Sure.
So there's no scripts to pass down for this problem. So that's why I wrote Good Pictures, Bad Pictures. It gives parents, it's a read aloud book. Parents are used to reading their books to their children. That's a very nurturing, comfortable kind of situation, intimate. And so the books just give those scripts in a very comfortable way. And again, it's giving helping parents define what pornography is or bad pictures,
Hmm.
and then helping them teach a child really good reasons why you don't want to look, because they need really good reasons. There's so much pressure. It's so normalized out there that you have to give your kids really good reasons, and not just it's bad and it's wrong and, it's bad for you. It's bad
Hmm.
for you. Why is it bad for you? It's bad for you because of these effects. And so we list some of the reasons in the book why it's bad for you. It can become an addiction. It can teach people to be mean to each other when they should be loving and kind. Um, it objectifies people. We talk about, you can kick a ball and it's not going to hurt the ball's feelings. But if you kick a person,
Yes.
and so in pornography, there's so much sexual violence that
Yeah.
is taught in pornography. And so we want to give kids really good reasons. Those are not stressed in the book. It's just very lightly touched on. And a parent can expand that as a child gets older. But we talk about their brains, in the one so I've got two books, one for ages 3 to like 7 or 8, and the other one from 7 to 11 or 12. And the one for the older kids talks a lot about the process of addiction.
Hmm.
And when we think about the world that we live in, oh my goodness, there are so many addictive substances
Hmm.
and behaviors, activities, from, gambling to screens to pornography
Sure.
to, we just live in a world awash with addiction. So we need to teach our children how to protect their brains from addiction. And so
Hmm.
in Good Pictures, Bad Pictures, you're teaching them how to keep their brains safe from the addiction that is most open to children. I mean, we protect our children from alcohol and smoking and,
Sure.
you know, street drugs and all that, pretty much. But, what about the drug that's coming through a device? We're not as protective or worried about that. So anyway, and then the book gives kids a plan.
Hmm.
So they need to know what to do. You can't just tell them
Absolutely.
there's a really bad problem and here's how it can harm you. You have to tell them what to do, what you expect. So in the book for older children, we have the can do plan, and it gives 5 steps. And not only does it help a child know what to do in the moment, when they're exposed, but also it helps them deal with the after effects. So the
Hmm.
memories, and helps them know how to minimize those shocking memories. And really you can use that technique for anything that is troubling a child. So while I wrote this specifically for, to help kids reject pornography, there are so many other applications that parents can use in their everyday parenting.
Oh, that's so good. Yeah. The basic principles apply to so many different things. I think one of the things, Kristen, that I don't think people realize the addictiveness of pornography for kids till the last whatever number, not that long, not that many years ago. They kind of would see it with adults maybe, but they just think, oh, kids, and they can, right? Kids can become addicted to it at whatever age.
Well, I was at the American Association of Christian Counselors. I go to their international conference, and often I've spoken there too. And I was there the last time they met, and I had a therapist come up to me and she goes, "Oh, this is such a problem." She goes, "I am currently counseling a 6-year-old
Mm.
child that is addicted to pornography." And so we have
Wow.
actually developed a book for counselors called The Good Pictures, Bad Pictures Guide for Counseling Kids. Parents can use it too, but
Sure.
it's for professionals to help in their clinical work. And I don't know another book like it, really. And it's so amazing because this is a huge problem that anyone that, counsels kids is going to run into. So yeah, we are so worried about the physical safety of kids. We're not worried enough about the digital safety
Mm.
of kids. Kids can get addicted and they can become sexualized at a very early age. I remember a young man telling me that he became kind of sexualized just by some movies that his parents let him watch. They didn't even think about the effect that it would have on
Sure.
him. And he used to rip out like these very sexualized underwear ads from magazines and,
Sure.
the flyers that they would get, the catalogs that they would get in the mail, and he'd rip them out and he had the collection and he would hide them under his Thomas the Train set
Oh
when he
boy.
was 6.
Oh
And
my
his mom
gosh.
found him one day, but she never said a word, like she didn't know what to say. And so it's so important that our kids get a heads up early enough so that they know what to do and they have someone safe to talk to about it.
Yeah. Yes, I think so. When you're saying that, it reminds me of some times I've heard people, and this is a few years ago, but they would say, "Well, they're just curious," and I think, no, no, you teach them about it. You teach them about God's plan for sex the right way, not that. And so, I think any parent, that should be a huge red flag if you see something that your child, especially that he was hiding it. So there's something in his little mind at
Yeah.
6 years old
Hmm.
that knew something's wrong here, but
It's
he was
gonna, yeah,
so drawn to it. Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
that's me. I love the way you use good pictures, bad pictures, because today our kids grow up with pictures. Somebody's always taking a picture of them. They're saying, "Mom, take a picture of me doing this. Did you film my game? Did you film that?" So I think that gets to something that's so relatable to them to do the
right.
good picture, bad, because they know what the good pictures are because they're in most
Yeah.
of them and everybody loves them, And so I think I love that. I think that's such a great approach to it.
It makes it very clear for children.
Yes.
Children are black and white.
Hmm.
And I know there's some people that say, well, we need to have a nuanced conversation. Well, that's great. You have a nuanced conversation with an older child whose brain can be nuanced. But for a young child, they are black and white, good and bad, and it's important that you approach them in an age appropriate way. So that's what we do with Good Pictures, Bad Pictures.
Hmm.
And I am so grateful. It's been a number one bestseller for 10 years
It's so good.
and on Amazon. And it just shows that it's really helping parents. And honestly, I don't advertise. And it's just word of mouth that people tell their friends and family about the book because they're all facing this problem and they're all
Yes.
having this fear. And the book really just helps. It's a tool. It's not going to do everything for you, but it is a tool that you can use to begin those conversations. I love it when parents share stories with me. There was a mom who, she hated the idea of her son, her young son, I think he was like 7 years old, seeing pornography. She hated it, but she knew he needed to be prepared. So she read Good Pictures, Bad Pictures to him, but she still did everything she could to like protect him. And
Sure.
she practically did a background check of, any kid that he played with. But it's true, but a new family moved into their cul-de-sac. And before she had a chance to really check him out, one of their little boys came over, wanted to play. Can we ride our bikes? Sure. Well, let's go back over to his house, get his bike. And the mom was like, well, what trouble can they get into, right? They're just going to go grab the bike and then come back. And she says, okay. So he went over there, but for whatever reason, they went inside, and the older teenage brother said, hey, he was there with his friend. They were looking at porn. Hey, come here. And this little boy was exposed to pornography. Well, he came back. He did exactly what his mom had taught him. He said, he told her what had happened. And, he knew exactly what to do. He was scared. He was a little shocked, but
Sure.
they talked about it and debriefed, and she helped him figure out like what to do with those memories. And as the book teaches, and she said, in a way, it was a beautiful thing. Their trust, she said, I felt our trust and our connection, even increase in that moment. And the plan worked.
Yeah.
So children have a real choice when they're educated. If you don't educate them, if you don't open the conversation, then I don't believe they have a real choice. They are caught off guard, and their curiosity takes over. And without any other knowledge, they don't know what hit them. And I don't know about you, but I'm terrible when I'm caught off guard. I have to
Yes.
be prepared. And how many times do you have a conversation? You're like, oh, dang, I should have said this or I should have said that.
Right.
And, but a child needs to know what to do in that situation.
Hmm.
And it will relieve such a burden, because so many children, it's not their natural, like, parents think, oh, if my kid ever saw anything, they would come right to me and tell me. Uh, that's not borne out by the research. And most parents underestimate by quite a bit the negative exposures that their children have online. And that there's study after study that show that. So your listeners do not want to be in that group
No.
that are underestimating. They want to be on top of it, and they want to be right there with their children, facing those
Hmm.
digital dangers so that their kids can thrive, because there is so much good out there, and there is so
Sure.
much good about technology. But
Absolutely.
yeah, kids need to be educated so they can make a real choice, a good choice.
I totally agree, and I think as a parent, wanted my kids to come to me, and so I think you're setting that up by reading the book to them, going through the books with them. That you're setting that up for, hey, I understand, I'm here, and something happens, come to me, because that's who you want to come to.
Right,
So you can help them work through that, just like that
right.
mom did, and that's so cool how she had equipped him, and then she had the tools then to help him work through that after it was exposed. Because
Right.
so many, I don't know what the percentage is. I know it's high, but there's a lot of kids that are exposed and will be exposed, and we've got to help.
Yes.
And most of it is a surprise, don't you think? I mean, it's not like they may be older, but at those young ages, it just catches them totally off guard.
It does. And the thing is that, both of these books are designed so that kids can, you can read them to kids even before you have the conversation about the birds and the bees, right?
Right.
And we were very careful about that when I wrote this book. However, I would urge parents to have that conversation earlier than you think is necessary, because the world is out there, and the world is not shy, and the world is not
Hmm.
caring about your kids. The world is wanting to addict them so that they can make money off of them, whether it's ad
Yes.
revenues or premium subscriptions. They're looking to get younger and younger addicts, and normalize it for them. And also, the other reason that I tell parents to warn their children about pornography is to keep them physically safer from, a physical hands-on
Hmm.
predator. So here's a story. A 6-year-old boy, his mom read him good pictures, bad pictures. They went over, and it seemed like such a safe place, right? And they went over to a friend's home to have dinner, and the people were renovating, their friends were renovating the house, and so they'd put the kids' toys down at the in the basement, right where the stairs were, right under the stairs. So they were allowed to run down, get a toy, come back up. Well, this 6-year-old, he was down there, looking, trying to figure out which toy to get. And in the meantime, when he was there alone, who comes up to him? A man who was renting the basement apartment. He came up to him, held up, showed him gay porn on the phone and said, hey, this would be fun, started to groom him. And this little boy, because he knew and had been taught what pornography is, and he had also been taught that no one should ever show pornography or bad pictures to a child. He ran upstairs and he told his mom, and he got himself out of a very,
Wow.
And this is happening again and again. I have many other stories of this same kind of thing happening where a child is like, because guess what? Pornography is, the best grooming tool, for
Sure.
kids, because it normalizes sex with children. It teaches them what to do. And so kids watch it. They're, oh, okay. It just seems normalized. And so it breaks down their inhibitions. So it's like the grooming tool of choice. Well, if a kid if he's exposed to that and know what to do, then they're going to be just that much safer from, anyone that is seeking to harm them.
Yeah, that's a great story. And I think it just tells us as parents and grandparents that we've just got to keep our eyes and ears open, that there's places we think are safe that are not, and we've heard,
No place is safe where people can bring a device.
Yes, exactly.
That's the problem, and they're everywhere.
It is. I didn't have to worry about that when my son was growing up because there weren't phones came in when he was in high school, but they were not like the devices we have now, and you couldn't do the things on
Right.
them that people can do. And so it's something I think it's parents are having to deal with it, and they probably don't get as much feedback from their parents because their parents didn't deal with it. I mean, this is kind of a newer thing with, the last 20 years, whatever, when the iPhones come out in 07. So that's kind of when all that really began. Before then, you had to go somewhere or buy something
Right.
or walk in a store
Mm-hmm.
or whatever like that. And now it's on much right there.
It's pushing it. It's being pushed to the kids in
Yeah.
their video games. It's being pushed to them. And so I recommend that parents do not let their young children on multiplayer, internet connected games. And unless they are going to sit there every single time that child plays, hearing every single and seeing every single conversation, and being with them, because so many kids are pulled into sextortion and all kinds of other problems from these games. The FBI just came out with a warning at the beginning of this year about how, a group of sextortionists will find a kid in a game and they're posing as other children.
Mhm.
And they come in and they're like, oh, hi. And they make friends with this kid. And after a little bit, they start to like share inappropriate pictures. Well, these are not kids, these are adults.
Right.
But the kid thinks it's just other kids. And so they normalize this, and then they get him to share pictures. And then they got him.
Yeah.
Because it's not the pictures they want. It's something to extort him, right? And so sextortion has become a huge problem. And so we don't recommend it. Defend Young Minds, we don't recommend that kids are on, multiplayer games that are connected to the internet, until they're really old enough to be responsible. And I would say that would be like 13 and above
Yeah.
at the least. And also social media is full of pornography and also very dangerous. When social media started up, Facebook started up, it was just this happy place, where we'd all post pictures and meet up with our old high school friends and whatever. Okay, that's then. This is now. It's a dangerous place. People have figured out how to exploit social media, and there are children being targeted every day, every minute by sextortion rings and gangs all over the world, posing as people that they're not, and getting these kids. What they're trying to do is get money. It's not pictures they're after. The picture is the trap. They want the picture, and then and even now they have these nudify apps where you can take a picture of anybody, and then it will nudify them. It will, you know, and so they'll even just get a picture of a kid if they engage with a kid, and use AI to make a nude picture, and then say, I'm going to send this to all your friends. They infiltrate their social media. I'm going to send this to all your friends. I'm going to send this to your grandma, your
Oh yeah.
parents, your pastor, and then the kid is like, your life is ended. And sometimes they do end their lives. So social media is not a safe place for children. We don't recommend social media until 16 or above. It is not a playground for children. I know they want it, and but more and more we are seeing that it is a dangerous place for children. And so I'm always so proud of parents who will say, we're not going to do this in our family. This is how we're going to do it. And I'm sorry that, you have friends that do, but we're going to do it this way. And here are my reasons. And even if you've allowed it, you can walk things back. But there's so many good reasons to hold off on that. And pornography is one of them. There's so much porn on social media,
Hmm.
Snapchat, and there's just tons of it. And you may not see it come up on your feed, but believe me, it's there and kids
Yeah.
find it.
Yeah, and that's it's so because I think sometimes we minimize what might happen on some of those. And as parents, because I totally agree with you, I'm becoming more and more in line with the people who say no phones before 14, and then a lot of restrictions and things like that on it. And your your kids at that age may think you're the meanest parents in the world, but having two adult children that have both come back and said thank you for what we did that they hated at that time, because now as parents they get it, and so it's okay to be the bad guy sometime,
That's
and
your goal. That's your goal.
exactly.
Be the
Exactly.
mean parent.
Yeah.
I'm right behind you. Be the mean parent.
Exactly.
I was a mean parent with certain things. Of course, I love my children. I provided for them.
Yeah.
I still, help my kids in so many ways, and they're adults. But, you know, what I would say is, I'd say, okay, listen, you know, God has given you to me, and I'm your parent, and you are my stewardship. And up until age 18, from the time you're born to age 18, I do this long thing with my arm, you're, you unfortunately, like, you're under, under my rules.
That's right.
Because I'm going to do the best I can to keep you safe. I'm going to do the best I can to prepare you to be happy and strong and healthy. But after you're 18, or, financially, on your own, you
Yeah.
can do whatever you want. You have the rest of your life to do whatever you want and make all the decisions by yourself that you have before you. But in this time, this is just a small part of your life, really. And that seemed to work with my kids.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, okay, until we're 18, till we're off to college, whatever, we're kind of under your, stewardship. And that, I don't know. I really believe in parents being parents and not friends to their children. Their children can have friends, and you can be friends to your children when they're adults. But when they're children, you're the parent, and
That's
you
right.
have more wisdom. You have more wisdom, and they can't make certain choices. They just don't have the maturity
Mm-mm.
to do it, and they don't understand why phones are dangerous. So we do say, we agree with you. 14, we say safer phones. If you're going to give a kid, look at the safer phones we have on defendyoungminds.com. We have lots of articles that compare these phones, that compare the smartwatches, Gab and Bark and Pinwheel and Trumi. Those are 4 safer phones that you can look at and see which one, might be good for your situation. So yes, I'm so glad that there's this technology now where we have these
Absolutely.
options. And we also have an article that we just published on why the iPhone is the worst phone for kids. It's a great phone for parents. Don't get me wrong, but not for kids. And we list all the reasons in this article why, the iPhone is just not built for protection. It's built for privacy for parents. And that makes it, problematic for kids.
Yeah, that's really good. One thing that I was going to ask you about that I just had a mom ask me about this morning, and that was anime porn. And I had really never
Oh,
thought,
yeah.
even thought about that, but apparently that is a big deal now.
Yep. It's called hentai.
Okay.
And we have an article on anime porn on Defend Young Minds. And yes, and it, kids are used to looking at cartoons.
Yeah.
And so they kind of get pulled into this. And a lot of these cartoon series, the first few can be pretty good. I mean, okay, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then as you get in there, they'll become more and more sexualized. So, but there is just right out, there's hentai porn. There's definitely a lot of it out there, and there are many genres of it. And I know women that have gotten into it and just said, well, I don't look at real porn, but I look at this porn. It's like, well, it is real porn because what it's doing
Right.
is it's affecting you, it's affecting your body and your brain in a very similar way. And you can get addicted to that kind of porn, just like you can get addicted to, actual video, pornography.
Mm-hmm.
You can also get addicted to the erotic literature. And a lot of time girls, that's how they get into porn, is they go in through this erotic literature, fan fiction, romance that's very steamy. And so many young adult novels are very sexualized. I knew a
Mm-hmm.
writer who wrote for that age group, young adult, and she had a publisher that was like, you need to put in some steamy scenes. And she's like, no, I'm not going to do it.
Good
So you
for
got to
her.
be careful about the young adult fiction. It's very highly sexualized, much of it. So you have to be careful. But girls will go in through that, and then eventually they will end up in the video porn and addicted to that as well. But they often go through kind of a different way than boys do.
Than guys do. Yeah, and I think as parents, I remember I can't remember what the book was, but there was a book that my daughter was going to read. Her friends were reading it. And so I just read it at the same time. And there were a couple things, it wasn't near like what we're talking about, but it gave me a chance to talk to her about. I said, what do you think of that when this happened in the book? And it gave me a chance to kind of process with her, kind of what is she thinking when she reads something like that? And so I think there's so many ways that we can communicate with our kids that as parents, we just have to take the time. I wasn't crazy about reading that book, but I felt like I need to do this, I need to do it. And it turned out, I thought, well, this worked out really well. So I think that as far as an age, you said the book starts at age 3, and don't think your kids are too young for you to read the book to them, right?
Yeah, we started reading these books. So when I started writing these books, I didn't have any grandchildren, but I kept thinking, even if no one else reads this book, I'm going to have it for my own grandkids. And I have 2 grandsons and another grandson on the way. And it's not just a boy problem. It is a girl problem for sure. But we've started reading, this one, Good Pictures, Bad Pictures Junior, to them when they were 2 years old. And we continue to read it to them. The oldest one is 6. So we're about to transition to the next level book for him. They need to know these things. And why do we do it for 3? Well, most 3-year-olds are on a device or have access at
Yeah.
some point. And you want them to know what to do in these situations. If you were in my place sitting here and hearing all the stories that I hear when I go to conferences and just people contacting us of 3-year-olds seeing pornography
Mm,
and then imitating it, actually, it's heartbreaking.
it is.
And so we need to start talking to them at a young age, as you know, unless that, if you have a 3-year-old that doesn't have any access to any devices, whether they're at grandma's house, whether they're at the preschool, whether with friends, you know, it when they start having any access at all to the internet, we need to give them a gentle warning about bad pictures and what to
Yeah,
do when they see them, if they see them.
absolutely. Let's go into, because I think it's interesting the things you talk about with the science behind the addictiveness. Talk a little bit about that of really what goes on in somebody's brain.
Yeah. Oh, well, we could be here for hours, but to just make it really simple, like the book does, we have two major sections of our brain. I mean, obviously we have more than that, but like we talk about the feeling brain. Another kind of name for that could be the wanting brain, the
Hmm.
feeling brain, the wanting brain. I'm hungry, I'm thirsty, I'm cold, I want this, I want that, right? And then the thinking brain. So the thinking brain is this prefrontal cortex, and the thinking brain, of course, is not very well established in a young person's brain, but as they grow, it becomes, it grows and
Hmm.
matures. That's why, your car insurance goes down after you turn 25. I mean,
Right.
especially for men. It's, that thinking brain is not completely developed until we're in our
No.
mid 20s. And so we teach children about the feeling brain and the thinking brain and why it's important to keep, how they're both very important. They're both absolutely essential. And it's not like a bad brain and a good brain. It's
Yeah.
a more of a kind of a primitive brain that is automatic and instinctive, and a thinking brain. So you don't want to be having to think about breathing and beating your heart every minute, right? You can't do
Right.
that. So, but we have to think about our actions. We have to plan. We have to learn from our past. And so the thinking brain is where we learn our morals. It's where we
Hmm.
learn, to be good people, to make choices, to be selfless, right? To help
Hmm.
others. And so we ask in the book, like, which brain needs to be in charge of your choices?
Yeah.
Well, it's the thinking brain, because that's the brain that knows right from wrong and good from bad and learns those things. So in an addiction, what happens in a very simple way? And we have articles that will go into this on defendyoungminds.com. But in an addiction, what basically happens is that feeling part of the brain gets hijacked. And that's the one in control. So in the book, we have this analogy. It's an analogy of the ice cream truck. Now, we actually still have an ice cream truck that goes around our neighborhood in the summer. But, you know, these trucks, imagine there's a truck on the other side of the road, and it's a hot summer day and you want ice cream. Well, your feeling brain says, go get the ice cream. It's going to be so delicious and tasty. But your thinking brain says, stop,
Mm.
look for cars first. Don't cross that street without looking for cars. And then you can do it safely and you can get your ice cream and you can be safe. But when you have an addiction, it's like a person that doesn't look for cars. They
Hmm.
just go. And so often we say of people that have an addiction, what were they thinking to do that? Don't they know they're going to lose their job, they're going to lose their family, their marriage, you know, but they weren't thinking. That's the problem,
Yeah.
because an addiction has hijacked that part. And we go into so much, you can go into all the different biochemical, the dopamine and the the neurons and the neural synapses and all the things that happen with an addiction. But basically, that feeling brain hijacks the rest of the brain and gets put in charge. And we all know people who have addictions, and they make bad choices.
Yeah.
They lie to cover up their addiction. They just make bad choices. And so it's important for our kids to understand
Hmm.
addictions, the process of addictions, and how they can keep their brain free from addictions.
Addiction.
And I use this myself, and some days with more success than others, but like, okay, should I eat that chocolate bar? Maybe I shouldn't, right? Like thinking brain, feeling brain. Man, I'm feeling bad about this. A chocolate bar would make me feel better.
Always.
And yeah, always. So I think that, I have my little addictions as well, but it's so important that we teach our kids early
Sure.
about the addictive nature of, pornography, of screens, social media, and substances. I think it's very, very important, and something that the books do really well.
So we've talked about all the day. Anything else that you see that affects kids, that harms them when they're exposed to porn? Other things that you see,
Yeah. So, well, first of all, it can become an addiction,
right?
right? And one that's very difficult to overcome. Because when you think about it, if you had a meth addiction
Yeah.
and you could get meth 24/7 from your phone
Oh
for
yeah.
free,
Yeah.
right? In your bedroom, would you have a problem? Yes, you would. Well, that's
Absolutely.
porn. You can get it for free, anonymously, any time of day or night through your phone. And it's a drug just as much as, it affects your brain just as much, as cocaine in a very similar way. So, addiction. Second of all, it can normalize sex at an early age for children. So they've done some studies, and children, especially girls that look at porn, are much more likely to engage in risky sexual behaviors
Hmm.
at a much earlier age. We know that children are making porn of themselves, right? And just a few years ago, 40% of child sexual, it used to be called child porn. Now it's child sexual assault material, CSAM. 40% was child on child, or, children making it of sex with other children. And now it's 70%.
Wow.
70% of CSAM is child generated. That's a problem, people.
Oh
And
my
it
gosh.
is
Yes.
fueled by pornography. It is fueled by the
Sure.
normalization of pornography. The other thing we talked about at the beginning, child on child, harmful sexual behavior. So that is fueling that. When kids see it, kids are imitative. They can't help that. That is their brain. In a good, ideal world, they view parents doing good things and healthy things, and they will imitate those things. But in a world where they can get access to pornography, then they imitate that.
Yeah.
And so kids imitating on other children, harming other children, that boy I talked about at the beginning, he went to a treatment program. And many states, I'll tell you, it just depends on your state. But many states, instead of prosecuting these kids, they put them through a treatment program, which is definitely what you want. And, I met with him maybe 6 years, 8 years after this had happened. He had gone through this program. He was on a sex offender list, but he could get off of it after a certain amount of time. And most of these kids do not reoffend on other children. They're not pedophiles, is what I'm saying, especially if they get this treatment. But he was in a cohort with like 8 other boys who had all acted out on other children. And he said none of them had a hands-on perpetrator. None of them.
Wow.
It was all porn.
Wow.
All porn. So they looked at porn and then they looked for opportunities to try those things on other more vulnerable children. So siblings, and we have several articles about this. If you have this happen in your family, or if you're worried at all, please go and read these articles. We tell you like exactly what to do in these situations, and it can be scary, but we have a lot of resources for that situation because we know it is linked to pornography. So another thing is just this idea of like sexual scripts that porn teaches. You know, porn teaches that sex should be violent. It shouldn't have anything to do with caring or loving or respecting the person. It is just your own pleasure, your own excitement. So looking at pornography often, you know, it may begin with you doing it with other friends, but it almost always leads to higher levels of loneliness and higher levels of mental illness. So this is a thing that I've been researching more and more. In fact, I was recently at the National Center on Sexual Exploitation. They do an annual conference, and I was speaking there about the mental health harms of pornography. And we're getting more and more studies now showing the association between people who use pornography and a much higher risk for depression, anxiety, and all forms of like psychopathic behavior. So if you want to help your kids have good mental health, it's another reason to help them reject pornography. And finally, if you want your children to grow up and have really good marriages and be able to have a great sex life, you know, we don't often just say that right out loud, but I just did. You know, I wanted my daughter to have a great sex life when she got married. I wanted her to have, you know, that sweet sexual intimacy with her husband. And I had a few books that I had to read. And she did, you know, some kids will talk to you all day long about this stuff, and other kids are like, you know, so, okay, here's some books to read. So, you know, if you want your kids to have a great sex life, help them see that pornography is not going to get them there. They have much higher risk of divorce. So many divorces are caused, a huge majority of divorces are caused by one of the partners having, you know, a sexual or a porn addiction or an internet addiction. The other thing is there are therapists who will recommend that couples watch porn together because, it's going to spice up your love life. You know, I'm no sex expert. I'm not Dr. Ruth, you know, but I think sexual intimacy is something that it's not a performance. It's not something you have to watch others do to figure out how to do it. It is something that you develop with your husband or wife that is special to you and unique to you. Two people in a relationship watch porn together. They're 3 times more likely than couples that don't to have to experience infidelity in their relationship or their marriage. So it does not help your marriage. It actually hurts your marriage. So many harms.
Yeah,
we could be here all day.
That's just another one of those. That's another one of those lies that the porn industry wants us to believe.
Absolutely.
That it's kind of and it doesn't. You know, to me, that it's no place in God's plan for sex and marriage. And God gave us. You know, Adam and Eve didn't have porn; they didn't have other stuff, and I imagine they had a pretty good sex life. You know, and so we don't need all that other stuff. They had each other to love and to care for.
Yeah. But kids these days, they can't imagine, like, how do you even figure this out without porn? Like, you know, they seem to think there's so many kids, it's so normalized to them. So that's what we have an opportunity to say, no, this isn't normal. No, this isn't healthy. This is what's healthy. And porn is the exact opposite of depicting healthy, sexual relations.
Absolutely. A parent's listening today and they think, maybe my child has been exposed to porn or they've been suspecting it. What would you tell them to do?
Well, first of all, I would say that realize that porn is the enemy, not your kid. Good kids get pulled into porn all the time. So it doesn't make your kid a bad kid just because he or she has gotten pulled into porn, especially if no one's talked to them about it, right? So I would actually start with reading good pictures, bad pictures, and just start this conversation as if you may not even know, right? But start the conversation, start to kind of like, and if your child's like, I don't want to, just say, well, you know, I'm your mom, I'm your dad. This is an important part of my stewardship, and we're gonna just gonna have to have these conversations, and then we'll go out to ice cream or something. Try to. I guess
Right.
there I am. There's my food addiction going on. But I think that begin by that. Now, let's say you see that you discover that your kid has been looking at porn. What do you do then? Well, we have an article like 6 mistakes parents make when their child has been looking at porn or they find their child looking at porn. I think the biggest mistake is one that we can all totally relate to, and that is freaking out, getting emotional because you're all of a sudden you're surprised, shocked, and now you may be ashamed. How has this happened? You have all these fears. And so the initial thing, and we have what we call a SMART plan for parents. So it's a guide on our website. We have one, How to Talk to Kids About Porn, and that is totally free to download. And then we have another one that's fairly inexpensive. It's a curated, like about 90 pages or 80 pages of our best advice and also advice from counselors, what to do when you know your kid's seeing porn. But the first step is stay calm. So it's a SMART plan. So S is stay calm. Listen, you can afford to take 48, 72 hours, whatever, a week to deal with your own emotions first and make a plan. So M stands for make a plan. Here's how we're going to deal with it. Here's the questions we're going to try to get answered. So once you are calmed down and realize that the world has not ended, you still love your child, they still have, a happy, healthy future, ahead of them. But there is this problem, which is very common. So you're going to make a plan and then start to, talk to your child. And I would say also with that make a plan, we have a list of questions in that guide that, you'll want to get answered. But you don't want to get them answered all at once. This is not the Spanish Inquisition, right? You just little by little, drip by drip, drop by drop, because once you have a very kind of like a calm conversation with that child, they're going to trust you. And then maybe they'll tell you a little bit more. You're never going to get the full story at the beginning, but it can come out over time as they trust you to talk about pornography. So you can give them all your strong reasonings, and you can do what you can to put filters on. And I totally recommend putting filters on your Wi-Fi, your devices, parent controls, all of those things. But just don't count on them to work. The only filter that will work is the internal filter. And that's the disposition that you're building from the time they're little to reject pornography, to give them all those strong reasons why they should. But also if you do the parental controls, if you do all of the filtering, kids can get around these things. They can get burner phones. There are ways, and they're smart and they talk to each other, right? But you're basically doing this as a kind of a show of I care for you and I care enough to do everything I can in my power, with the caveat that they can get around this. So you're doing the high tech things and you're doing the low tech things, and then your child has their choice. So if you think that you can actually mandate them not to look at porn or absolutely protect them, you're going to have to go live on a desert island with no internet.
Yes.
Okay. And so we can't do that. We have to live in the world. So that's why I say developing this internal filter, this disposition to reject pornography, and why. So they understand. And then again, they have their choice. So try to keep in mind you love your child, even if they're struggling with a bad habit or an addiction, even. You love your child, and you can't overcome it for him or her, but you can be there to help.
Absolutely.
And we have some articles about people that have, like, teenagers that have gotten into recovery from a porn addiction and what they've gone through, the steps they've taken. We even had an attorney who was in his late 20s who had a problem with pornography, and he had kind of gone through all the programs and everything and kind of come up with his own kind of method to, start his day and organize his day so that he stays away from
Sure.
pornography, and he's able to deal with the stressors of life without going, because that's what kids use pornography to help them in the short term deal with their negative emotions, deal with stressful situations, deal with being bullied, deal with being lonely,
Sure.
deal with all the things, right? And I wrote a paper, actually. It's not published, but I did my own research just to find out for myself why kids hire porn, doing air quotes, hire porn. Um, and there are many reasons why kids hire porn. They use it for many reasons. One of them is to learn about sex, but another one is to deal with their negative emotions. So that's another thing we want to teach them: emotional regulation and emotional resilience, so that they know how to deal with these emotions without going to an addictive substance like chocolate, or like porn, right? Yeah.
Yeah, you remind me of a mom, and this was a few years ago, and she said, "I cannot believe he looked at porn. I told him never to look at porn." And it's got to be more than that. It's got to be so much more than that. It's just, and I think you guys have
Yeah.
so many tools and the read aloud books. I love the website defendyoungminds.com. It looks like people can kind of go there and find just about everything that you've got.
Yeah, we have so much information, and
Just so much.
we take the sales of the books and we put it into our outreach. So we're on Instagram and Facebook and X and LinkedIn, and also this website. So it takes quite a bit to run a website and to keep it up and running. My husband's dealing with, we just had like a spam attack on
Yeah.
our website. But we're working on it. But the thing is that parents can find, and they can also find our Brain Defense Digital Safety course, which is a
Yes.
digital course that you can do with your kids. 5 lessons, but you can break it down into 10. But it's not taught by me, thank goodness. It's taught by 6 positive teens that are funny and have great
Oh, that's cool.
stories, and they are role models. We have learned, and you know this, that kids are very influenced by their peers. And
Absolutely.
so they really listen to their older peers. And that's what we do with Brain Defense, to help them have a defense against anything that would hurt their brain, as definitely pornography does. So check out Brain Defense Digital Safety and all the other guides that we have, and definitely the books. And you can find them all on defendyoungminds.com.
Well, and it's such a easy to navigate your website. It's just so, sometimes people go on you go on a website and you think, I don't know where to go. This one, for everybody that's listening, it's so easy. You're going to be able to push that home page to scroll down and find exactly what you're looking for, and then take that step, and then whatever else you feel like you need. So thank you for that website. Thank you for the resources that parents have. Thank you for your heart for this. To really, I mean, it just comes out in your passion for this, of, and if every parent would take it serious, we don't have to give our kids over to this. We can help them navigate it. And like you
Big
said, once
fight.
they're 18 or 20, well, but my feeling is if we've laid that groundwork as they grow up, it's probably going to carry over into the next phase of their lives too.
Yeah, I believe that. I mean, we can do our very best to defend them, to help them have digital defense skills, right? We can equip them. We can't make their choices, but we can equip them. And it's so much better than just crossing our fingers and hoping, that they'll just, not see it, or hoping that they'll just reject it naturally, oh, I wouldn't want to look at that. Hey, when I was a kid, I found a Playboy magazine. I was quite interested in it
Yeah.
when I was like 8 years old. And I think I was a pretty good kid, but
I think you were.
I mean,
No, you're
I
right.
was a normal kid. If you have a biological child that is a human, right, then they're going to be interested in this material.
Absolutely.
If you have a robot child, then you can just program them. So don't worry about them. But like, if you have a human child, then this is just something you have to prepare them to deal with, and you can, and it doesn't, it's so much easier today, but you are also fighting against a lot. AI has just opened up a complete world of opportunity. I have a daughter who is a scientist, a data scientist at a national laboratory. And she goes, I use AI for things,
Sure.
certain things that she goes, it's actually been very helpful. And I'm like, that's great. But there's also really a lot of dangers with AI. So we have
So
a whole, like, I think about a 3-part series on AI and what to teach your kids about it. And so we just try to cover all the things, and we partner with other people that are doing wonderful things out there as well. So I would just invite you to come download our free guide, How to Talk to Kids About Pornography.
yes.
That'll get you on our mailing list for our once a week newsletter that goes out. We don't spam you. We don't sell our newsletter. So our email addresses at all, we protect them. So yeah, and then you can look at all the things that we have to help you. We just want to help. I mean, honestly, I feel called to do this, and I've often wondered why, like, why me? Not why me in a bad way, but like, I don't have a degree in psychology. I'm not a teacher. I have a degree in English and a degree in organizational communication. But I'm outspoken and I'm not afraid to tell the truth about this. Maybe that's what qualified me. I don't know. That'll be one of my questions when I pass over. But I'm here now trying to do everything I can, and I've got grandsons, and I love them, and it makes me just furious to think that, about them seeing this kind of stuff. And it's not just, the other thing about this, Dr. Kim, is that people think about pornography. They think, oh, it's like a Playboy magazine, or it's just, a man and a woman having sex. And that is not pornography today. It is so much worse. It is so degraded. And because it's addicting, you have to escalate. So all the pornographers have made more and more extreme and different flavors of, pornography. So you just know, I can't even describe some of the things that I know are just common fare on any porn site. It's racist. It includes so much sexual violence, and you can't even imagine how bad it is. So that's another reason to really talk to our kids about it, so that they can protect their innocence. We want to like protect their innocence and don't talk to them about porn. Actually, we are helping them protect their innocence if we do talk to them and
Absolutely.
warn them.
Absolutely. And I think as parents, that's a responsibility in our culture today that we have to take up. We've got to take up that. and we have wonderful tools like the Good Pictures, Bad Pictures, and the junior one. Also, I just realized that you are part of the, we collabed with to have the Sex Talk video series that's on our Awesome Marriage University site. And so people can get see some more things about that, of having that sex talk. And all of that stuff is so important. And we try to equip people to have good marriages and to grow. What you're doing to help those equip parents takes all of us together to kind of navigate this world and have the kind of lives that God designed for us. And thank you so much for what you do. This has been an incredible conversation. I think we've told people where to find everything. Just go to defendyoungminds.com and find out more. And there's so much free stuff and then some great other materials on there. So thank you, Kristen, for taking time today. This has been a delightful conversation and very informative. And I know it's going to help a lot of people who've just been wondering what to do. And now they know we can take that next step. And here we've got some tools to do that with. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate you having the courage to tackle this. Thank you for having me on.
You bet.